Hey, it's me, not Michael, at Live from the Heartland this week. Welcome, friends, family, neighbors, comrades, brothers, and sisters. I can't do what Michael does, but all the citizens of our world, our city. We're here for you with another edition of Live from the Heartland, which is the number 142 in the pandemic era. We've been doing Zoom shows as opposed to live for quite some time now. Our home base is WLUW. Today we welcome our guests Mike Klonsky and Josina Morita. So we'll just get right to it. Hope everyone's recuperating from the municipal elections we just had. Quite a wild ride in so many ways. We'll talk to both of our guests about that. In the good news portion of the realm, thanks to being on duty in a campaign here in the ward, in the 49th ward, I got to bring a 91-year-old woman who one of our phone bankers found, called and said, "Have you voted yet?" And she said, "Well, I have my ballot, but I have to deliver it. And I could use some help," because our next question on the phone bank was, "Do you need a ride to the polls?" Long story short, I wound up driving over to pick up this 91-year-old gal and her walker. We took herself to the early voting spot where the ballot box is, dropped it in there, and she said to me, "I'm so glad you were able to do this for me. If I hadn't voted, it would have been the first time in 72 years." She moved me. Another good news for us locally is we had a big win in the local aldermanic. Maria Haddon again gathered a lion's share. This time it was even more, 74% of the ballots cast in the 49th ward. And we think that is really good news. Good news is the weather turning nicer. We're heading into spring, although I know Chicago and it is March and anything can happen. So be ready. But I do know myself and others are beginning to think of gardens. So I hope that's enough good news because there's so much other news. For example, the war in Ukraine turned 1 year old this past week. That was right after the visit that President Biden made to the Ukraine. Amped up talking, not good about weaponry and possible nuclear activity over there. It's a very scary time. We had somebody in some UN or maybe NATO council yesterday from Russia literally reference nuclear activity. We really need to focus on ending that whole engagement there. And I know we didn't start it, but somehow we have to help the negotiations happen. And as if to, sort of signal it, there was a big demonstration in Berlin this past week, 10,000 people calling for negotiations, not war. Let's see. This week's municipal election, we'll go into it, like I said, with our guests, but suffice it to say, it's another one for the ages, whatever that means. We will talk to Mike and Josina about it. Sad happening here in Chicago yesterday. A Chicago police officer was shot and killed in Gage Park as he was dealing with a domestic dispute. Quite an amazing showing of first responders, huge gathering of first responders around Mount Sinai Hospital, where the officer was pronounced dead. He was young. He was only 5 years on the force. And of course, the shooter was also young, 18 years old. And he's also in the hospital as the officer did fire on him before he was downed. This is not the way we want to live in Chicago. And okay. There's in healthcare field news, Eli Lilly lowered the price of insulin by some 70% beginning in May. Thank you, Bernie Sanders. I think that's what we need to say at this point. Thank you, Bernie Sanders, and all the people you have rallied and organized to organize and put pressure the way you have on drug prices. This is going to save lives, and I'm glad that people have been steadfast in calling for it. We still have a big Supreme Court final election in Wisconsin. That's April 4th. Many Chicagoans have been going up there, knocking on doors and sending postcards and the whole 9 yards. That is, again, a significant election that will have ramifications for the next decade for Wisconsinites. And not only them, of course. As we know, the courts are now a battling ground for the political right. So just be aware of that. Let's see. Here in our neighborhood, it was a rough and tumble election, complete with social media trolling, outright fabrication about one's opponent and supporters, and the inevitable sign wars. Mercifully, that's over. I'm still wondering, after 50 years of doing campaigns and elections, what is the upside to nasty campaigning? What I just don't know. Some people I remember people saying bad commercials, nasty commercials win votes. Do they really? Michael has in the script, because he's been doing this comeback stories, and I just wrote Vallis ? That would be Paul Vallis, who at this moment in time, it would seem like the mayor's seat is his to lose. More on that later. Environmentally speaking, the Illinois Environmental Council, headed up by our own neighbor, Jen Walling, is got a bill trying to get styrofoam banned in our state. Info on how you can help, go to the Illinois Environmental Council website, IEC, and it'll be right up there, the bill that is now under consideration. And let's see, as we look to the end of one of the warmest winters in my lifetime as a Chicagoan, it's snowing in LA. Big storms are roiling across the South. And, Chicago's sitting pretty. We cross our fingers, knock on wood, whatever. We have not had dramatic and life-threatening weather activity, but doesn't mean that we're not feeling it for those that do. I have to mention that Michael's photo show, Crossing Borders, at the Uri Eichen Gallery, 2200 South Halsted, will open Friday, March 10th, and be up for a little less than a month. He's been working hard on it. Some of those photos go back 40, 50 years. We're really happy that he's having so much fun sharing his photos with the world. Good news, again, is Funkadacey is playing at Space in Evanston this weekend, Sunday, March 5th. They are always a treat and always an uplift, and we love Funkadacey. So if you get a chance, if you're free to go out on Sunday after early evening, they are there, and they are a spirit lifter to be sure. Okay, I think at this point we're going to have a little musical break, and we'll come back with Mike Klonsky, and hopefully you'll still be with us. We are so happy here at Live from the Heartland to welcome a very good friend and a longtime friend of Michael's, especially. You guys go back further than I, but I've been lucky enough to know your family for some years now, and you're all wonderful. I love you. We should let people know that that sun coming through the window behind you is from Florida. And
yes.
We just had a really nice day yesterday here in Chicago, and we're headed for some snow tomorrow, I think.
Well, I'm really sorry to hear that, but I've got it pretty tough down here in Florida. It's very difficult to drive with the sun beating, creating glare in the windshield. And this 90-degree heat, and makes the pool too warm actually to work out in.
I'm not listening to any of this, Michael.
Okay.
My sister Colette used to live in Florida, and she said her favorite bumper sticker down there was, "When I get old, I'm going to move to your state and drive really slow."
That's about it. But the downside of it is that we're living under this DeSantis fascism, and it's horrible, and it's really taking its toll on the schools and on teachers. And this is a man who's very likely to run for president of the United States, and so his goal is to make the whole country like Florida, and he doesn't mean the weather.
No,
he means a fascist dictatorship, and so we've got to stop him here in Florida before it's too late, as they say. Yeah,
truly. He made a stop here in Chicago prior to the election.
I heard. Yeah,
and visited with his friends in the FOP and other people they support. So
yeah, like Paul Vallis, for example.
Yeah, like that guy,
Yes.
Before we go off into the realm of politics, which I know you and I can just swim in forever, let's just mention you are still a radio show host, are you not? Are you guys still doing Hitting Left?
Yeah, we're doing Hitting Left, and we've been on hiatus while I've been down here in Florida looking after my Susan's dad, who's been very ill. And we'll be back next week, though, and we'll resume our in-studio shows. Up until now, we've just been doing archive shows and music shows. But yes, we're still doing Hitting Left. It's gone on almost 5 years now. And, our next show is going to be a sum up in fact, of the Chicago elections.
Oh, wow. Invite me
so
on.
So tune in. Yeah, tune in.
This show is about 30 years old, I'm thinking, since it started when it was live and in the Heartland. And I took a hiatus myself. So I'm filling in for Michael today, who's recovering, hopefully quickly.
And we wish him, all the Klonskys wish him a speedy recovery, to our brother who we've known for going on 60 years now, I think.
That's right. I'm sure. Absolutely. You also have a pretty darn good commentary in your blog. You don't call it a blog though, or maybe you do.
I don't know anymore. It's they call it a newsletter, but to me, it's still a blog. Okay. It's my outlet for venting about education, politics, or whatever is on my mind. Yeah, it's called Mike Klonsky's Edupol.
So Mike Klonsky's Edupol, and that's like how people find it.
And
just
politics,
looking up.
Yeah.
And there's a slash mark between edu and Paul.
Yeah, it's on Substack. So you can find me easily on Substack. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Okay. So I think you've already given me your response to DeSantis and his anti-woke thing, which every time that word comes out of one of these guys' mouths, I just want to scream. We had a guy running for police district here whose name is WOLK, and he made a point at the forum. He didn't win, by the way, but he made a point after to saying that's woke, not woke.
Yeah,
it's
well, they've come up with the MAGAs have come up with all these dog whistles and catchphrases designed to capture the fears and sentiments of white people and try to win white workers over to to fascism, which is an old story in this country and everywhere in the world. Yeah.
So one of the funnier commentaries I caught on Facebook or something yesterday since the election was someone commenting, I see a lot of Go Brandon shirts and posters being hidden away in certain people's attics at this point. You know what I'm saying? The Go Brandon theme.
The Go, not Brandon Johnson. You mean the catchphrase they have for Biden?
Exactly. All the people who are going to be stomping for Vallis, they're definitely going to have to put away their Go Brandon paraphernalia.
I guess so. Yeah.
The MAGA into the MAGA closet. All right, let's talk election. What have you been reading or observing about it that is interesting to you? And just basically, is there any good news from your perspective about the Chicago municipal elections as far as you can see? Some good news.
Well, yeah, it's hard to find to find good news because in my mind, this was like a backlash election. Uh, it reminded me a lot of how Trump came into power on the heels of the Obama um, uh, presidency, and they managed to here's a guy who only got 5% of the vote in 2019, and he managed to capture, I guess you call it the white lane, running against like 9 candidates of color, or however many it was,
Right.
and trying to play on the fears people had about crime in the city. And that was kind of a direct appeal. I think Vallis even used the term, we have to take back the city, this old dog whistle phrase. But the fact that he was the only white candidate and the only, even though he denies it, the only Republican candidate with appeal to the white wards and the call them the red wards, if you want to talk in national terms, where so many cops and people of that persuasion live. It gave him a clear path into the runoffs. In the meantime, we had like 7 candidates of color vying for the second runoff position. And, that made it impossible for Lori Lightfoot, the incumbent, to succeed, I think. But the good news is, if you were looking for good news, is we do have a progressive candidate in the runoff in Brandon Johnson. And I would say, I hope people can put aside all the animosity and venom that was built up in a kind of internecine warfare in the left and try to unite behind Brandon, because he's the only thing blocking Vallis now from City Hall. So even though I didn't vote for Brandon in the first round, I got to back him now.
Yeah, I think that's the case for an awful lot of people. I actually did not feel, even though it was a real situation of consternation when Chewy jumped in when he did for a lot of us, and wondering, why now? And we had, as you said, I would say 3 or 4 actual progressive candidates. Cam Buckner, Sophia, Brandon, and I'm forgetting the other one. How quickly we forget. Anyway, but I didn't see vitriol in front of me between left. I was working in the 49th ward, and we had a very activist Chicago teacher contingent, as we always have had, and they actually they bumped up the ranks in our little organization here, and we decided we would do ranked choice balloting for the endorsement because of the number of candidates, which we could talk about that in a second. But anyway, they won. They edged out for Brandon by 1 vote over the Garcia faction, which I am part of. But we're not a faction. I wound up handing out Brandon signs to those who wanted them from the campaign office and telling them where to get Chewy signs. I mean, there was coexistence. Now, of course, there's got to be unity.
Yeah, well, I've seen the kind of the over the top kind of toxic treatment of those progressives who weren't aligned with each candidate. And I think this
online. Do you see that online, Mike?
I see it online. I see it all over. I mean, CTU people drumming Chewy out of the progressive, saying he's no longer a progressive. That kind of stuff, spreading rumors about each other. This has been going on, by the way, since the last election, in 2019, and I don't think the left ever got, or I'd say the left, but many in the left ever got over the loss to Lightfoot in the 2019 election. And ever since then, they've been going at her, not just the left, but the white media press corps, the City Hall press corps, have been merciless. And I think it's led to deep divisions, and I'm hoping that they can put Humpty Dumpty back together again, because I think it's been shattered, put in pieces, and there's a lot of hard feelings now, and it's very difficult to just say, okay, we should all forget about that and unite behind Brandon. It's going to be a tough road.
Not when you look at what the alternative is, I think, right?
Well, look at it this way. If unity could have been built, if you take the combined votes of Brandon, Chewy, and Lightfoot, put them together, the progressive candidate wins without even a runoff, over 50%. Right. But they couldn't do that. And I'm looking for signs that that's possible now. You think it can be done. I hope you're right, but I'm dubious.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful, but I'm dubious,
How do you do that at the same time?
Yeah, I don't know. It's been the story of my life.
So what ward do you live in? Do you live in 26?
Well, my ward is the first ward now. It used to be the 32nd. So now I'm in the first ward, yes.
Who's your alder?
Well, now it is La Spada. It used to be Wagaspack.
Right. Okay.
And Vallis carried my old ward. In other words, Wagaspack's ward, he carried it easily. He got 48% in that ward. But in my new ward, Brandon won.
Mm-hmm. So La Spada is in a runoff. You know that, right?
La Spada's in a runoff, yeah. And they,
came so close. Unless the mail-in ballots make a difference for them.
Yeah, well, there's still a lot of runoffs going on in the aldermanic election, so we'll see what happens there. What really pissed me off was that this guy Gardner won up on the north side. I can't stand that guy.
No.
And he's the guy who personally attacked my daughter and stuff, and called her all kind of B word and all kind of names like that. And so I really hope that I think he barely is in a runoff now, but he's favored to win. I cannot understand how people can support this guy. And I'd like to have a couple minutes alone with him myself, maybe in an alley somewhere. But I'm not going to do that, of course, because it wouldn't be illegal. Yeah.
There's the new one of the new members of the council this time. I saw him last night. A guy named Fuentes is the 26th ward, which is part of Logan Square, I think. And he's a Brandon guy. But he's very young. It's nice to see fresh blood coming into that council.
Well, the other Logan Square ward is the 35th, I think.
Uh-huh.
And I think Brandon did very well in that ward too. So, but here's the thing. I mean, if you really want to break down the numbers, Lori Lightfoot carried the predominantly black wards.
That's right.
Pretty handily, like she did in 2019. Well, in 2019, she captured all 50 wards.
Yeah, exactly.
But in this time, she did even better in the black wards. But she lost heavily in the white wards that went for her last time.
Okay.
And that's why I kind of call it a backlash election. Now the white wards went for Vallis, and it reminded me of the Harold Washington days in that regard. And then Brandon got the Lakeshore liberal vote.
Right.
And then Chewy, of course, captured the the vote in Little Village and, in the, Humboldt Park and the Pilsen. So, we were kind of reverted back to the race politics of the past, which Lori Lightfoot had disrupted in 2019 when she took all 50 wards, Black, white, Asian, Latino, etc. So that's kind of a sad story to me, but I'm looking for rays of hope there. And like I say, I hope they can put Humpty Dumpty back together again, not just in terms of the left unity, but in terms of Black, Latino, Asian unity against this white supremacist gang backed by the FOP and its racist leader, John Catanzara, who endorsed Vallis.
Yeah.
And that's really all you need to know about the politics of this city. It's all embedded right there in that divide. Yeah.
Listen, well, just before we end, I was wondering, what do you think about the new district councils? We just voted a bunch of people across town to regular citizens to sit on this council that is supposed to have some effect. I assume if Vallis wins, they'll have no effect. I assume if Brandon wins, he might actually work with them.
Well, again, I'm hopeful. I mean, I hope it leads to more grassroots participation and oversight of this police department that's running wild right now, with protection from the FOP. And but again, it just seems like we keep creating these new bureaucratic structures. But what I'm missing out on is any talk in the campaign about ending concentrated poverty in the city and stopping the easy flow of guns into the city, which are the basic requirements if you want to reduce crime. If you're not talking about that, then all the different forms and stuff for participation don't mean much to me. I mean, you're just moving the chairs around on the deck of the Titanic.
Yeah. Let's not end on that note.
Okay.
You have a wonderful family. Please give them all my love. I miss seeing Susan so much.
All right. Well, let's get together when we get back in town, and
I'd love that.
We want to get you and Michael on our radio show too. So we'll pick a date and we'll do that, and we'll talk more about the elections after we get some more in our rearview mirror.
Yes, indeed. Listen, you take it easy down there.
All right, Katy.
In the unfree state of Florida.
Okay.
Do any damage you can editorially, and blessings to the family and all the good work you're doing with your.
All right, and right back at you. Okay.
Wow, we are back this time with our friend and relatively newly elected Cook County Commissioner Josina Morita. Very nice to see you.
Great to see you too, Katy.
Yeah, I don't know when the last time you were on the show. I know it was with Michael, not me, but it was also before when you were running to gain former Larry Suffredin's Cook County Commissioner seat last year. You went from the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District commissioning, which you had done for how long?
6 years, a full term.
A full term. And now you are a Cook County Commissioner. And how is it different? I know it's very different, but what are the differences that you like so far in your new job?
It's different in a lot of ways that are great. I mean, I loved my 6 years at MWRD as the first urban planner on the board and the first Asian American on the board, being able to bring new voices and perspectives and work on our land use policies at MWRD. And it was great to be countywide, but it was also hard. I think one thing that I love about being at the county board now is having a smaller district, and it's still a big district. It's 350,000 people, but I feel like I have a home, and that it's my home, right? This is where I live. This is the community that I spend the most time in. And, we share, values and share a lot of different, pieces of our lives across this district that includes, all of Niles Township, so Skokie, Morton Grove, Lincolnwood, all of Evanston, all of the 49th and 50th wards, and then parts of 40 and 48. And the district changed with this last election after redistricting. So we used to go all the way up to the Lake County border. including all of New Trier Township. Now we no longer have any of New Trier Township, so Evanston, Skokie is our northern border. And then we go further south into the city, down to Peterson. And so I say that we're the most diverse district in Cook County. We have over 100 languages spoken. We're home to one of the largest Asian American communities in the Cook County. We're the home of one of the largest Assyrian communities in the country, home of a very concentrated Orthodox Jewish community, historically Black communities, so first reparation program in the country at the municipal level in Evanston, and the diversity of Rogers Park. So it's a great district for me as the first Asian American woman on the board, and who's somebody who's worked in coalition across racial and religious communities, having such a diverse district, and thinking about how do we make these connections. So I love having a district and having kind of a home community to be able to build with. I also just love the broader set of issues. I think before I was at Water Reclamation District, I was a community organizer working on juvenile justice and healthcare for all, environmental justice. And these are the core issues that the county does. Larry Suffredin always calls it stealth government, that it was an agency that people didn't really know what we do, but we run the health and hospital system. We are the safety net around healthcare, serving undocumented anybody. No one is turned away at Stroger. And then we work on the health and hospitals. We work on the courts and jail system, which we're really excited. Hopefully when it gets untied up in court, we'll be implementing the Pretrial Fairness Act and ending cash money bond for the first time in Cook County, and making it a more reformed and equitable system for the people of Cook County. And then we run the Cook County Forest Preserves, which is just one of the most beautiful assets. And with the referendum that just passed, thank you to everybody who supported it. In our area, it passed by over 70%, higher than the rest of Cook County. And I think this is going to go down in history as our generation's Burnham Plan. We are the only municipality that I know of, metro area, that is investing in and expanding natural spaces versus shrinking them and overdeveloping. And so this referendum, I think, is really going to go down in history as a game changer for the region. So just really exciting stuff, and being able to work on a broader set of issues as an urban planner beyond stormwater, which I love. And that's something I can still work on at the county, but also criminal justice reform, election reform, property tax reform, and our health and, healthcare for all. I just think it's an exciting time to be at the county.
It sounds like you're totally embracing it, and that's so great. I know that a couple of us were talking about seeing your old colleague, Deb Shore, on the news in the last couple of weeks off of the Ohio train disaster as the local representative of EPA, the Great Lakes District. She had to be the face. And it was nice to see her. And you could tell that was someone who was taking it very seriously. And it's good to know she's there, basically.
Yeah, I mean, we need good people who care about the environment, who care about good government everywhere. And I love being at MWRD with Deb. I can't imagine being there without her. Yeah. And it's great to have her over the EPA. They have some serious challenges, but I believe if anybody can help, it's Deb.
Yeah. So you just mentioned a lot of the whole ramifications of being a commissioner in Cook County, and including all of the wonders of the green necklace, as Larry used to call it, around
the emerald necklace.
The emerald neck, that's it. Yes, which is the forest preserves and the other green land. What out of that whole list of things that you mentioned, including healthcare and our jail system, has maybe more attention what has your attention the most at this point out of all of those things you mentioned?
So I'm still learning. I'll just be honest, right? I think when you go into government, a new layer of government, as much as you can read all of the policy handbooks and, all of that, you just are not in it. And so it's been about 3 months in. I'm still learning a lot of the nitty gritty, and thinking also learning about the district. Like we've met with over 1,000 people across the district in just 3 months, listening to them and understanding what are the issues. What do we need to? I always say it's our job to know the district and know the different communities in the district well enough that as opportunities and information come from the county, we know who needs it. We know how to get it to them, not communities' responsibility to always know everything that's going on in county government. And so we're still in that learning process, learning, what are the different organizations, what are the different challenges, what are the different concerns and needs across the district that we need to be aware of. And then also learning what are the different things that county has jurisdiction over, what are the things that we're working on, what are the opportunities and resources we can bring back to the district, and then figuring out how do we kind of set our priorities. So, we've been learning all kinds of, I didn't know that if you live anywhere in Cook County and you have an appointment at County Hospital, we will provide a free ride. I didn't know that. I didn't know that we do the same for the Brookfield Zoo and the Botanic Garden, that we have free tickets for those who can't afford it. We will arrange buses and transportation for community groups that want to go out and see it. We're lucky that we're so close to the Botanic Garden, but even people in our district have not been there, let alone others from Cook County. So how do we make sure that all of Cook County's assets are accessible and affordable for different families? So that's been one layer. And the other is some of the policy ideas that I came in with and that I talked about in the campaign. So my first resolution that I passed just at the last board meeting in February is committing Cook County to having a grassroots process to develop the county's first environmental justice policy by the end of next year. So we've never had one. This is something I'm really passionate about. I know people across the 13th district. So we're going to be developing an environmental justice task force within the 13th district to engage residents around what do they want to see in this policy. But we also wrote into the resolution that we're going to adopt the core values of the environmental justice principles, which really center communities that are most impacted. And so we will be working with environmental justice organizations and communities of color across Cook County to develop this policy over the next year. It won't be just written in an office. It'll be an actual engagement process with, what we call environmental justice communities and those who care about this issue in the district, but also countywide. And so that's something that we've already got off the ground. And over the next 2 months, my office, along with other county commissioners, are going to be holding a series of hearings, literally 20 hours probably of hearings with every department head under the offices of the president, every separately elected, to ask the question simply, how are you collecting data on Asian Americans and what is called Middle Eastern North African? And how are we serving communities that have different linguistic needs? It was surprising to me to come into county government, although this is probably true of most layers of government, that we don't consistently collect data on Asian Americans. So parts of Cook County government do, parts of Cook County government don't. And so before we mandate it, we want to understand what are we doing, what is working, what's not working, and then figure out the path forward. But if we're not counting every community, then we're not serving every community. And so the first step is just knowing what are we doing, who are we counting, and how do we do this better? So that, along with that leading into language access, we have over 100 languages spoken in the 13th district alone. I would say at best we do Spanish for most of county's functions, but when you start getting to Polish, Chinese, Arabic, Urdu, it starts to fade. And how are we serving a district like ours if people are not even getting information in the language that they understand? So those are three of the things that we are already kind of starting to get our teeth into over the next year, but we're also continuing to listen and learn.
That sounds very commonsensical in a way, the way you describe, let's count, let's hear what's already there, let's not reinvent the wheel, but let's make the wheel we need to serve people. I don't know. I just always feel like putting women in office makes those kinds of common sense approaches and get to the nitty gritty and more available to us all. So really, thank you. Thank you for bringing your entire self to this. So I'm going to switch gears here for a minute because before we and we must talk about the election we just shared. You were actively campaigning, I think, for a number of candidates in Tuesday's election, weren't you?
Yes.
Who were your favorites and how did they fare?
It was a good night for a lot of my candidates. So, for mayor, I was with Brandon Johnson from day one. I was with him at his announcement. Some people think that I supported him because he was my colleague at the county board. But really, I've been an organizer with Brandon for years. We worked on minimum wage. We've worked on a lot of different issues around equity and coalition building across the city. And I believe in Brandon. I believe in his core that he will lead with love and be collaborative and bring in a whole new generation of people who have not been engaged in politics. And so I'm really excited about it. When I look at the coalition that we built, even just in the February election, we had a multiracial, multi-generational set of progressive electeds and organizations and activists that were excited to have a candidate that we really believe in as progressives. Maria Hadden and Matt Martin were also part of this campaign. And we're hoping to build a coalition with folks who are with Chewy. For progressives as a whole, I think that, one thing when I look at Chicago is, I worked with young people for, a number of years when I was an organizer at United Congress, and they did a project around kind of, the issue of violence, and their definition of violence, right, wasn't about bad people or even bad decisions, is the absence of hope. Absence of everything else, absence of good schools, affordable healthcare, job opportunities, but also hope. And that's what I think has been missing from the city, is that hope, especially among young people and young, people of color. And I really believe that Brandon can help us rebuild the soul of our city. And so I'm really excited about that. Our very own Maria Hadden, reelected with an overwhelming majority, Andre Vasquez, and with a slightly different hat on, I chaired the Asian American Caucus for the last 4 years. We grew from 0 to 17 electeds across the state. Not only have we been growing, but we have been flipping red seats blue. We're the only community that flipped 3 Republican seats Democratic over the last 2 cycles. And we got our first Chinese American alderman representing the Chinatown and broader 11th Ward community. And so I think it's really important to have representation, to have a seat at the table. And right now she's the only Asian American city council. We do have one other Asian American that made the runoff, Lenny Mana Hoppenworth in the 48th Ward. So we're excited to continue to build that bench and build representation at every level of government as well.
So you and I, that was wonderful. You sort of gave me the chills there when you talked about hope, just so you know. I do chill easy, but still, thank you for talking about hope. Thank you for talking about real stuff like that. You and I shared part of Election Day.
Yes.
And I know that we were, by the time you were sitting at another table in the same room, I was sitting at a table. I think we were both pretty bleary-eyed. It was towards the end of the day. And what else did you do? Did you go down to the Brandon celebration, or did you?
I did. Yeah. I mean, it was a packed room. And again, it was just great to see so many people from so many different backgrounds on the West Side, and you could feel the energy. It was like, again, it was hope. It was love. It was energy. People who I think were feeling like for the first time, young people feeling like for the first time in their lifetime that they have a candidate that they really believe in who could lead the city. And so it was a fun night. It was fun to see a lot of friends who are, supporting Brandon. And it's been also really nice to have conversations over the last day or two of people who were supporting Chewy, who are like, we're all in. Look, this is not about one person over another. This is about the Chicago that we're trying to build together. And we have to build this coalition. And I think we all share values and have similar issues that we care about. And Brandon is the candidate that's going to bring us together over the next 5 weeks.
I see what you just described too. Our first guest, Mike Klonsky, who is in Logan Square. he's a little more negative on what he thinks the splits that he sees in the progressive movement. Whereas I told him, and he's at the moment down in Florida dealing with family business. I said, I don't see that. I see people going, okay, now it's Brandon time. Because I do believe it would be tragic to have a Mayor Vallis at this time.
I think it'd be tragic to have a Mayor Vallis. I also think it would be tragic for progressives to miss this opportunity to build something bigger. This is about winning, but it's also about building a multiracial progressive coalition in this city. And to the average person, they don't care about the inside baseball. They don't care about personalities. They don't care about ideological splits and, people's personal history and baggage. They want to have hope. They want to have a city that they believe in. They want to have a leader that they can believe in. And so I hope that all of us, and maybe I'll be honest, maybe it's easier for me to say as somebody who was Team Brandon, but we have to be bigger, right? It's like when they go low, we go high. We have to know this is not about us. And do what's best for the city and do what's best for building something bigger beyond this election. And so I'm really hopeful that we can do that.
I think that's a perfect place to leave our talk today, Josina, because we will no doubt be talking again. But in the next 5 weeks, we have a job to do here in this city. So we'll check in after that some point.
Yes.
And see how it's going with you in the county and see how we're faring here with our new leadership in the city. So thanks so much for giving us some time today. I know you're busy and busy as a mom and busy as a commissioner and busy as
my kids are almost 3 and 5 already, Katy. I had no kids last time. I feel like, when I first started in this political road.
Yeah, you've made some changes, girl. And brought new people in. Thank you for that. And thank you for joining us on Live from the Heartland. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody. Talk soon.
So thanks for tuning in today. Thanks for watching. If you've gone to youtube.com/Heartland Media to find us. We're here every week, and it's normally Michael James as your host these days. So he'll be back next week, and I'm sure he'll talk to you about his new photography show going up next week, March 10th at Uri Eichen Gallery down at 2200 South Halsted, but I'm reminding you of it. And thanks for doing all you can do to make a better world. We need all the good we can do. Something for your community, clean up the alley with neighbors, help register voters for the next election coming up. Lobby for that environmental initiative I talked about earlier, the end of styrofoam in Illinois. And all power to the people. Thank you, Hal James and Michael James and everyone associated with the production of this show. Lynn Orman Weiss, who I miss seeing. And also check out our sister shows. Mike Klonsky's Hitting Left, which will be back up next week. All right. That's it from us in the Heartland.